Good evening and welcome to the August 8, 2013 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I'm Charlie King, Chairman of the Building Review Board. At this time, I ask the board members to introduce themselves, starting to my left.
Robert Reda.
Michael Bleck.
Ross Friedman.
Ted Notz.
The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens, to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscape streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that become before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that cannot be fully resolved by the city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of the building permits are issued by the city without the need of any board review. Thus, the board typically deals with the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings, and to achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. A few items before we go into the full agenda. The sixth item on the agenda, 1313 East Wesley Road, has been postponed. So if anyone's here for that, it will not be being reviewed this evening. We do have a full agenda tonight, and we would like to have the petitioners be respectful of their 10-minute initial presentation time frame and just generally move this forward. And we do have a mandatory 11 o'clock adjournment time, so we'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. Please help us to that goal. We'll start with the approval of minutes of the July 9th, 2013 meeting. Does anybody have any comments or revisions, changes they'd like to make this? Okay, seeing none.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The meetings are approved. The minutes are approved. Our first agenda item following the approval of minutes is the consideration of a request for approval of new elevations and exterior materials for the previously approved Amberley Woods Courtyard Homes. No changes are proposed to the number of configuration of lots. The owner is Servco, Inc. The contractor purchaser is Hovnanian Homes, and the representative is Diana Melichar, architect. And I'm sorry, do we have anybody that would like to recuse themselves at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a project that I've been involved with for many years, having done the civil engineering and land surveying on it. And I did have a couple phone calls from the architect and the contract purchaser on the property. I'm not under contract, but I think it's best that I recuse myself at this
Okay,
time.
thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for hearing our petition tonight. I'm Diana Melichar of Melichar Architects. I also have with us our client, John Isherwood of Hovnanian Homes, and Rich Olson of Gary Weber and Associates, who's the landscape architect. Okay. Before I present the proposed homes, I'd like to share the context from which we form the framework for our designs. This image, on the next one, oh good, shows the entry to the Amberley Woods subdivision via a stone-clad bridge. On the left, you can see the partial view of the two previously built homes. The subdivision is uniquely situated in a woodland setting with mature trees and forest and sheltered wetlands. The existing building lots for our proposed homes are strung like pearls on the quietly meandering Amberley Court roadway. The Amberley Woods subdivision features a suburban curvilinear street typology that supports home designs that nestle into their woodland setting. Houses in this type of environment set first floors near grade level. This more relaxed orientation is more appropriate for lower, asymmetrical building designs to match the street's organic look of staggered homes along it. The center of the subdivision is the original manor home shown here. This gracious home is appropriately styled for its bucolic woodland surroundings. Its English Revival style serves as the inspiration for our new cottage home designs, and it utilizes many architectural elements that are featured in our homes. They include asymmetrical building massings, intersecting roof forms with second-floor dormers, a variety of wall material treatments including stucco, wood, brick, and stone, windows with smaller scale mutton groupings, and decorative chimney terminations. By referring to and reinterpreting the manor home style for our proposed English cottage home designs, it is our intention to provide a cohesive streetscape and therefore a cohesive Amberley Woods neighborhood. Here are images of the existing condominium building at Amberley Woods. The English Revival Manor House has already influenced its design. We believe that a consistency of architectural style is necessary to create an intimate, cohesive Amberley Court neighborhood. Rather than providing a hodgepodge of architectural styles in the small enclave of homes, we were inspired by successfully executed historic neighborhoods that provided proof that design cohesiveness and consistency are powerful placemakers. Such neighborhoods as Colonial Williamsburg, Boston's Beacon Hill, local Fort Sheridan and Prairie Crossing developments, and Howard Van Doren Shaw's Marktown near Chicago are good examples where the same architectural language is applied to a variety of buildings to create a pleasing neighborhood composition. Now I'm going to concentrate on the proposed home designs. There are 3 home designs with multiple variations available for purchase. Plan types A, B, and C vary in living area between 2,800 and 3,300 square feet. You'll notice, thanks, Jen. You'll notice that the footprints of these homes are not boxes with flush side walls, as you might expect in the long, narrow lots of Amberley Woods. Rather, rooms jut out ever so slightly on each building face to form pinwheel-shaped plans. This planning technique creates articulated building masses and elevations that are more diminutive than blocky one-dimensional buildings. Here you can see a sampling of our proposed home street elevations for plans A, B, and C. As previously described, the English cottage style has been selected for all of the proposed home designs. This organic style has enough inherent variation in its building massing combinations and materiality characteristics to avoid slavish monotony while still providing for a consistency of style. This is an image of Home B, facade version 1. This unit sampling illustrates that the proposed homes are consistent in their architectural design and English Revival detailing, as all 4 elevations for each home have appropriate proportions, scale, fenestrations, and building rhythms. Now I will illustrate how we can achieve diversity of landscape utilizing a cohesive architectural vocabulary. First, there are 2 alternate elevation treatments on all 4 sides of each home. Here we show the front and right side facades of Home A, versions 1 and 2. As you can see from this example, each facade version for each plan type features different building massings and elevational treatments of building walls, fenestration, roofscape and dormers, and exterior cladding combinations. Second, each facade version is available in different exterior materials packages including brick, siding, stucco and half timbering, and stone. This image shows the homes in a random order, as might occur when individual homes are selected by buyers during the development's build-out. To further ensure variety of exterior appearance within the neighborhood, these material packages also have several predetermined color scheme options that accompany them. The result is a cohesive development with rich diversity within the English Revival style. This image includes the 2 already built Amberley Court homes on the left and some representative new homes that could be built adjacent to those homes on the right. As you can see, the new home's architectural style, materials, and color palettes will also harmonize with the 2 existing cottage homes. In order to ensure that building combinations are diverse and built out in a harmonious manner, Hovnanian Homes will apply several safeguards to implement their property development. They include anti-monotony guidelines, a building facade matrix, and building materials and color palette options. First, there are 7 anti-monotony rules as outlined in our submission. They are listed here in this image. I won't detail them in this forum as their implementation is rather complex. However, the anti-monotony guidelines serve to prevent the undesirable duplication of the same buildings, and they will provide elevational diversity, so particular building materials or color palettes do not predominate in the subdivision. Second, a building facade matrix with coordinating material sample boards will help potential buyers to understand their options for facade versions, exterior material package selections, and corresponding color scheme options. We will provide 3 predetermined color palettes of dark, medium, or light natural building materials. We have those palettes right in front of you on the rail. Buyers can select a dominant facade material of brick, stucco, or Lannon stone, and corresponding building materials and colors will complement them in their respective color palettes. This image shows one of Melichar Architects' recent home designs to illustrate the selected stone material for homes at Amberley Woods. Where masonry wall material is indicated in the proposed home design drawings, random coursed ashlar Lannon stone can be substituted for brick. We don't have them on the palettes there just because we couldn't get those samples in time. To promote even more diversity within the English Revival style, the proposed stone and stucco home designs can also feature a blue-gray or forest green trim color. Natural cedarwood shingle roofing material is the preferred and only selection we will provide for buyers. The roofscape is a dominant feature of our designs, and cedar roofing gives the homes consistency, richness, and a patina as they age. The following images show built examples, mostly in Lake Forest, of the 3 material color palettes. You'll also notice one of our proposed home designs is in the lower right corner of the image that correlates to these English Revival architectural palettes. Here are examples of the dark color palette. Here's the medium color palette. And then the light color palette. Finally, viewing from left to right, you can see how the coordinated color combinations of dark, medium, and light materials provide range, diversity, and harmony within the same architectural style. Finally, I will address home siting and landscaping in Amberley Woods. The subdivision plat at Amberley Woods was previously approved by the City of Lake Forest in 2006. However, each new home on each existing lot should be sited in the best possible arrangement. This image is a proposed representative site plan. To promote optimal driveway layout and site planning, the Hovnanian Homes anti-monotony guidelines include garage orientation as either front or side-loaded, with a minimum of 1/3 of the garages being side-loaded. Garaging is set forward of the homes to preserve private rear yards and views to the southern woodlands. Several conditions will influence each home's garage orientation. They include the shape of the lot, the sight lines along the continuously curving street, if there are healthy front yard trees that might remain, and the selection of the floor plan type and the adjacent home's footprint. In some cases, front-loading garaging will help to limit views of garage doors from the street approach and may preserve more landscape front yard space. Each property condition is slightly different, and Hovnanian Homes will work on a case-by-case basis with their civil engineer and city staff to determine front versus side-loading garaging as the Amberley Woods community development develops. Here are the proposed landscape plans for each home A, B, and C. The landscape designs will harmonize with the existing natural landscape, and new plantings will be comprised mostly of vegetation located at foundation, front yard, and paver patio locations. I've got 2 more slides.
That's fine. Given the complexity of this, I think it's appropriate to go over a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you. Each cottage home will be landscaped with soft, flowing, naturalistic lines, with special attention given to creating vistas from inside the home and from each patio outward into the woodlands. This image shows a sampling of selected plant materials in both front and rear yards. Cottage perennial gardens, shade and ornamental trees, and flowering shrubs will be selected for year-round interest of flowering characteristics, fall coloration, fragrance, and textural qualities. In conclusion, the proposed new homes will blend with the existing natural environment and already built structures at Amberley Woods to create a diverse development with distinct character. We welcome your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any staff comments?
Thank you, Chairman King. This is a unique project before the board, where the board is typically reviewing single-family homes in the context of a single site. This project is a full development and reviewing the design parameters to allow that development to be built out in a diverse manner, consistent with our residential design guidelines. While some of the board members here tonight weren't on the board a few months ago, this is similar to the Willow Lake project that recently was approved by the Building Review Board earlier this year. The board this evening is looking at the massing of the designs, the elevational treatments, the materials, as well as the typical landscape plans. The proposed designs differ from the original approvals that were granted back in 2006, in that the home designs are smaller. They're a more compact footprint, which does allow less of the lot to be developed with impervious surface. The direction that the petitioner has chosen to go with the designs are really to stay within a similar vocabulary with respect to the architecture, but use the materiality and elevational treatments to add diversity to the designs that are presented this evening for approval. Given the unique site, the way in which the site sits into the landscaping, this approach seems appropriate and consistent with the design guidelines. One of the recommended conditions of approval is to have staff maintain a matrix as the development is built out to really ensure that the diversity that's described in the packet is achieved and that those rules are followed as the development moves forward. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that the board might have. I wanted to point out that you did receive a couple pieces of correspondence. A letter of support from the developer of the condominiums across the way was received, as well as correspondence from the neighboring property immediately to the east of this development. The neighbor to the east did have some concerns with drainage. I'd just like to add that as each individual lot is brought forward for development through the permitting process, staff will look carefully at the grading and engineering component of those projects for compliance with code. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Time for questions from the board to either staff or the petitioner. Why don't you start?
Ms. Melichar, is that how you pronounce your name?
Melichar.
Melichar.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a comment or a question,
Okay.
but I haven't been doing this long, and so I've kind of got the look of these, the facade shape, the elevation with the windows all lining up. So I've been looking in all these books about how to do the fenestration concept. But in your drawings, although they don't line up, they look right. So I guess my question is that like an intentional design?
When you say all lined up, you mean like,
All perfectly lined up, like geometrically. And yours don't.
yes, that's part of that.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of that English revival style. In English revival style, you don't necessarily have everything in an ordered, patterned, organized way like you had, let's say, in a Georgian style, but it's more of a balance of proportion and how it relates to the entire facade. So,
Thank you. So it was more of a question for myself, I think. Thanks.
Ted, do you have any?
For staff, the letter that was received from Keith Krebs suggests what he suggests to be fundamental issues with the drainage at the site that might not necessarily be addressed with individual drainage issues for a particular lot when it's built out. Is the city at all concerned that there's a fundamental drainage issue for the site that should be addressed up front?
We have forwarded this information to engineering staff. At this time, they're reviewing the information that's provided. They will certainly visit the site and make a determination if there is any improvements that the city can make or recommendations for individual property owners to improve drainage on their site.
Is the city responsible for that infrastructure at this point?
I'll let Ms. Cerniak respond to that question.
Board member Notz, I will note that the infrastructure for this overall development, which included not only the courtyard homes, but also the condominium parcel and then the not yet developed northwest parcel, the infrastructure for the overall site, including the creation of the detention ponds, was completed and was approved by city staff. Since this development has taken a while to build out due to economic conditions, city staff is continuing to monitor the site. But yes, overall, the drainage is working properly. Certainly, as other development occurs, we will more fully achieve the overall intended goal. But city staff will continue to monitor the project closely. The city engineer is aware of the concerns.
But in terms of any drainage installed under the streets, is the city responsible for maintaining it going forward at this point?
No, the Amberley Court is a private road. All the drainage is the responsibility of the Master Association, which involves the 3 associations that will ultimately make up the various pieces of that development.
Thank you.
Kathy, in response to that, has the Master Association during the last 5 years of the economic downturn, have they been adequately maintaining the infrastructure?
Yes, there are some pieces, for instance, the final lift has not yet been put on the road, so there are certainly some things still to be done because there haven't been active partners of all 3 of the development pieces to date. The project isn't as far along as we would like, but yes, the Master Association is formed, is active, is aware, and we're engaged currently in discussions with that group.
Hi, Diana.
Hi, Ross.
There's numerous specimen trees, heritage trees, we'll call them, on the site. How are those proposed to be addressed with the construction of the residences?
Well, what we were planning on doing is each home, as they come along and there's a prospective buyer, we're going to be working with the civil engineer and the city forester to site that house appropriately. And if there's a tree that may be a very important one, we're going to work around that the best we can.
So the concept is to be as flexible as possible with siting of the homes to preserve as many of the specimen heritage trees as possible.
As best as possible.
Not lock in a development site plan that is unyielding.
Well, the site plan was approved and platted in 2006, so of course we've got lots that are already predetermined.
But the
But
siting,
the
but the
siting of
sites
the
within.
the
right.
home on the site would be, we would be adjusting as best as we can. And that was part of the front-loading versus side-loading garaging, because it may be that we flip one of the homes so that way, we save a tree in the front yard or whatever it might be. So we were trying to keep that flexibility just for that reason.
The canopy does provide a beautiful character to the
It certainly
development.
does.
So something that I think would be economically imperative that you maintain that as best possible.
Yeah.
The garages, it looks like you're proposing 33% minimum side loading. I think that would be preferable to have as many of those as possible. Is there any way of, and I know you have to be flexible, but is there a way to up that percentage?
That's a good question. We spent quite a bit of time, days, studying potential options for site plans. And one of the things that we have about this particular site is that we've got this really curving road here. And so, unlike your typical street, what might be straight, and you're driving down the street and you see a driveway and a garage facing toward the street, there are times where we may be driving along here and our view comes this direction, and we'd be better off having a front-loading garage and looking at the side of the garage. So it's really going to depend on, and that's what I was talking about, of sight lines, trees, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see that we felt as though this was a very good site plan, and we actually have in this site plan 2/3 of the garaging loading front ways. So we wanted to kind of keep that flexible, so that way we didn't impose something that might be a detriment to the environment of the overall street character.
Okay, thanks. That's an excellent point on the curvilinear streets. Was there, in the previous approved plans, was there a percentage of front-loaded versus side-loading that was approved?
I don't remember the specific requirement for front or side-loaded garages for the original approval. Certainly the designs were different than what was is presented this evening. So I don't recall.
And along those lines, the previously approved plans, could you give us a little feel for, these are smaller homes, by what degree? Were there 4,000, 5,000 square foot homes before? We just don't have any historical context what was contemplated here before, that anything you can give us would be helpful, I think.
Should I answer that some?
That's fine, either one.
I don't know the exact square footage. I just know that in terms of footprint, that the homes, the two homes, and I know we have another diagram here. The two homes that are on the right that were already built here, this is the previously approved site plan. These are about 91 feet. Our homes are closer to 80 feet, so they're, you know, we're getting considerably shorter. And you can see that here's the two that were built before, and you can see that ours, they come out with that pinwheel plan in a few locations, but they're shorter.
Okay.
Chuck, I
Okay.
got another question.
Go ahead, Ted.
This is a question for staff. Is there a minimum setback between the homes of this plan? It was brought up that there needs to be some flexibility to modify the footprint of the house, or to move the footprint of the house to account for a tree that you're trying to protect or whatnot. Is there much room to move between lots, or are you really maximizing already that minimum distance between homes?
This development was pretty unique in that the lots are actually quite small and narrow. They do allow for a minimum 5-foot setback from the property line, so 10 feet between structures. But in terms of the preservation of the trees, the lots were made smaller to allow for greater areas of preservation. So while there's an expectation that some trees will be removed from the properties, the areas adjacent to those lots will be preserved and the canopy maintained.
Thank you.
Unit B elevations, there appears to be on the left side elevation kind of a courtyard with a gate. I'm not sure if that's in all units that are planned that or not, and could you tell me the materials that are planned for that?
The colored one. There's been much discussion about that courtyard plan, and we absolutely love it. We're thinking that a lot of people are really going to enjoy that feature, and that's right there. We're showing like a wooden gate. We've talked about just using arborvitae as one option of just making it a landscape material. We've also talked about, in some of the stone homes, if they wanted to make that a stone wall, it would be low. And we also talked about wood. So we haven't, that's one area that's sort of between landscape and architecture, that depending on where the site is of the house, and going back to the site plan for a minute, you'll see on our proposed site plan that in some locations, it might be very desirable, like over here near the office complex, if you had the courtyard plan and they decided that maybe they wanted to make this a more built feature in that particular location, it really starts providing a lot of space between the two homes. It also mitigates the sound necessarily from the tollway, and also it provides a real private space where you can open up all the different rooms to that courtyard and be away from the office complex. And other places, like down here, where there's quite a bit of space, I think there's over 30, I think this is 20 to 50 feet between this home. It may be that it's just a landscape feature where they have a patio out there and it's more open. because you can see on these guys are actually taking advantage of these huge vistas going out in each direction. So it really depends on where they're located on their sites. But we really like this plan. It provides more openness between
Sure.
between the lots.
Okay, thanks.
Diana, would you briefly address further the relationship between the proposed, is it 22 additional home residences? And the 2 existing? Because they are distinctly different architectural styles. And I'm just curious, your feedback, how they relate.
You want the streetscape one? Looks like that one, okay. Okay, so the 2 existing homes are this one here. These were drawings that we had from the previous developer's packet. So actually, the one on the left, I think, is flipped the other way. But essentially, what we were looking at was the scale and size of our homes compared to these 2 homes. We look at those 2 homes as also being cottage-style homes. Some of our homes, this one features stucco stone and wood, and this one has more wood in it. So these representatives examples don't show as much wood on some of the, as compared to, we've got one home that's got wavy siding and whatnot. But we feel as though they fit in quite well with those other 2 homes. And we didn't certainly want to mimic those homes. There's some, we were fortunate enough to be familiar with those homes. We went through them when they were first built in 2006 or whenever it was. And we felt as though we were actually improving on those homes because there are a fair amount of design flaws in them. They're still, very pleasant, but we were able to shorten the footprint, lower, and you've got some tall walls here, and we're trying to lower those walls, and that's part of the challenge of this site plan, is that we have space between each one of the homes that is fairly limited in some instances, and so we are trying to bring these eave lines down to a low spot. So we certainly don't want to duplicate what's there, but we feel as though it's something that they work well as in harmony with the 2 homes that are there. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Sure.
Staff, you made a comment here that we really don't have detailed drawings on a lot of elements of this, more of sketches than details. I imagine that's forthcoming before we would approve that at the staff level?
Certainly when projects come forward for building permit, detailed construction drawings will be required. I think if the board chooses to do so, asking for specific details of the eaves and the window surrounds, the small details that really make or break a design, I think is appropriate in this case.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen? Okay. Next, we have a time for anyone from the public to ask questions, comments, etc. Seeing one in the back, please, come forward.
Thank you. I'm a neighbor. I live at 220, my name's Greg Eward, live at 225 Saunders Road. Our property is adjacent to the south 50% of this development. And my primary reason for being here is really just to talk about some drainage concerns, but just maybe in context of what was mentioned. I mean, we too share some concerns about the trees and what will happen there eventually. And I know hopefully they mean well and good that trees will remain there, but as a historical context, the Opus / Solo buildings, the same thing was told when that was going to be built. We came to many of these meetings. They talked about the canopy. I don't know if you remember that property. We've lived there for over 20 years. There's a huge number of big, old trees, and they were just all cut down. I don't know if George Pantaleone, when he was on the city council or with this committee, even made mention of kind of how they were duped, and I think that is the word he used, that the canopy, quote unquote, that was promised just disappeared. So we live immediately south of there. There's lots of old trees in there, and our concern is just that those trees remain. A previous developer, when they were going through the process with this, I think one of the compromises they made was what they promised all the homeowners around there too, that there'd be a number of trees put in there. I mean, still at home, I have the detailed plot of all the trees that would be put in there. And I mean, you can literally count, I think, on two hands the number of trees that were were planted. There were several pine trees. Most of them are dead now. They were the 12-foot pine trees. And then, a number of very small, literally 1-inch trees that no longer exist there too. So, I mean, we have our concerns with that. There is a significant setback, I believe, from our property to the back of these houses. So hopefully that'll allow a lot of the trees to remain in place. My real concern, though, is just the drainage, and one of my fellow neighbors is here, too, who lives adjacent to the toll road, and the commercial properties, the two office developments have really significantly impacted his property in a negative way with the drainage, and I'm sure he'll talk and be able to explain that to you in a minute. But we just want to make sure, again, that everything is done and looked at, as was mentioned, to make sure that the drainage issues are looked at. I mean, historically in that area, even when the infrastructure was put in, from the sewers and the water, I mean, we've had some drainage problems since then too. Culverts were put in, and even to this day, I mean, it's a small one, but the point is well taken. There's a culvert that just leads to an area where there's standing water, and that culvert used to drain actually onto the property here where the development was, and now it's kind of walled off. So we just have a standing pond of stagnant water that sits there. So again, our concern is just the drainage and water flow, and making sure that you folks and everyone else involved with this truly look into those concerns and make sure that our properties are not adversely affected because of it.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Scott Scholler. I live at 260 Saunders Road, which is just at the end of Saunders, going westbound. I've been at this location for 20 years, and after the Opus construction, at least the phase 2, since then I've lost approximately a dozen 150-year-old oak trees. Between that and between the Tollway project, I'm very concerned on what happens farther east, per se, or higher ground. I understand I'm on wetland property. I know there's a natural flow of water that goes over wetland property, but when the water is just too abundant because of things that are happening up top, that just has a huge impact on my property and my neighbors. Matter of fact, if any of you were to take a drive down Saunders Road, and if you go westbound, you'd see from the road that I've got a neighbor that has lost a whole area of trees because of the abundance of water. The problem with some of these older oak trees is once they make their footprint, and even though they've been there over 100 years, when the hydrology changes in the area, you'll get a 3 to 5 year decline. And usually that decline means death. And once the tree starts to decline, even if you do change the hydrology, you've pretty much lost the tree. So my biggest concern is water, drainage, and the reason I'm here tonight is just to make that known. And, you know, I'm going to be having a meeting with engineering tomorrow at 10 a.m. about some of the problems I have on my property, because I know in the future there'll be more developing to the west of me. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Staff, any response to the public testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do know that particularly in Mr. Scholar's area, as you move through the tollway, a significant amount of those properties in that area are wetlands. And certainly with the Opus development, you did see some shift and change in that area. A couple of years ago, the city did do a storm sewer improvement along Saunders Road and provided the opportunity for neighbors to be part of that. So there has been some action taken, but on those lots that are very low and are impacted by wetlands, there is a limitation as to what can be done on those lots. With respect to Mr. Ewert's comments, importantly, the city has not yet accepted the final landscaping on the overall Amberley Woods development. So that is something that we're continuing to look at. We know that as build-out occurs, that there will be further impacts on trees. This development was approved with very large open areas and open wooded areas preserved. So that's why you see these smaller, tighter lots. As we look at some of those open areas, some of those wooded areas, and see some dieback, we will work with the Master Association to assure that there's some infill and replacement plantings done if plant materials are failing to thrive. We will also, as I mentioned before, continue to look at the drainage as this area is built out. The detention ponds were created and sized specifically to this development at the time that the overall development was approved. So we do hear your concerns. We can't solve all of those drainage issues because some of the water has just been there and is always going to be there. But certainly with the new development that will occur as Amberley Woods builds out, the plans were developed, and we will assure that there are no additional negative off-site impacts.
Kathy, doesn't the City of Lake Forest tree criteria apply to these sites as well, inch for inch, or the bank?
This overall development was approved, and at the time that it was approved, there was a significant payment in lieu of on-site plantings that was made by the original developer to the City of Lake Forest. So as part of the overall approvals, there was acknowledgement right up front that there was going to be tree loss on this property. Originally, it was 40 heavily wooded acres. So the lots that will be built out with the courtyard homes, there was acknowledgement as part of the original approvals that there will be tree loss on those small lots. The lots were purposely kept very small, and I think as one of you mentioned, there isn't a whole lot of latitude to move that house one way or another. Certainly, we will work with the developer if there's a key tree near the streetscape, and if a side-load garage or a front-load garage works better to preserve that. I think we've heard a commitment that we will work together to try and do that. But there will be tree loss, and that's already been accounted for.
But that's an important note then, to set the correct expectation that tree loss for the new homes will not be mitigated by replacement trees or additional in lieu of fee. That was done initially when the development was approved.
But that doesn't mean that as part of development of each of these lots, there won't still be landscape plans, which will include trees.
Might the same have been true with the Opus development, that the developer had a master plan approval and had contributed an upfront fee to mitigate the tree loss?
There was absolutely an overall plan approved for the development of the Opus site. My recollection is that in that case, there wasn't a payment in lieu of required. There were various plantings and enhancements, planting along the tollway that was required. I don't specifically, there may have been a payment in lieu of, but I can't say that for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Does the petitioner have any final comments at all? Okay. Thank you. Any final questions from the board, the staff? Okay. Time for discussion amongst the board. Bob, you want to lead off?
Yeah, I mean, I think the architectural design passes all the criteria. I think that the drainage issue and the landscaping issue are important, but in the staff recommendations, some of the conditions, if I'm correct, I think I'm pretty right on this, the conditions, oh yeah. The architectural design, I think, meet all the criteria. But as far as the landscaping goes and the drainage goes, I think part of the conditions that are already recommended within the petition, and the petition subject to the conditions, are gonna reincorporate drainage issues and landscaping issues as each piece of property is being developed, one by one by one.
Guys?
I think the reduction in the overall scope of housing, 10 to 20% from what was originally approved and planned, is a benefit to the neighborhood in terms of the issues we've discussed tonight. The architectural detailing has been well-established and true in its context. I think the tree issue obviously is something that's emotional, although maybe simply a function of living with what's been already accepted. The drainage issue must be properly addressed and approved by engineering. I think that overall, this is a worthy approach.
I really have nothing more to add other than I find the design to be very attractive and in keeping with a really top-tier quality neighborhood, and the homeowners association of the Amberley Woods area, I think, all welcome the success that you'll be bringing to it.
I echo some of the sentiments here. The materials, I think, are going to be attractive, and the design elements are in keeping with what's already there, the manor house and the condo. So I think it should fit in nicely to the neighborhood. I do want to make sure the staff pays extra attention on some of these architectural details. We just don't have really what we would normally have to approve this, but we have a great staff, so I trust their input and judgment on this. I think you're right, that the size of the footprint now, reducing this actually is going to be beneficial to the neighbors for the drainage issue and the lack of trees, the trees coming that are displaced. So I think there's actually improvement here from what has previously been approved, quite frankly. So I'm supportive of this and subject to the staff recommendations. I don't know if you guys feel the same way or not, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve the petition as submitted tonight based upon the staff's findings and the general and specific conditions that are therein. I want to make a note that the packet itself and all the public testimony here be incorporated in those findings, and that one additional condition is that the actual architectural plans, which I know the staff is going to already cover this anyway, are consistent with the drawings that have been submitted by the architect.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We'll be going on to our next agenda item. Before we do, though, several people have entered the room. Just wanted to let those folks know that if you're here for the 1313 East Wesley Road petition, that has been postponed. Again, 1313 has been postponed. We will not be covering that tonight. The next item is a consideration of a request for approval of a new residence and associated site and landscape plans for a property at 296 Mills Court. Owner is Ken Marsh, and the purchaser is Adam Grabowski with Representative Richard Swanson, architect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Getting used to this new technology. For the record, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Rick Swanson. I'm an architect. My offices are here in Lake Forest, and I'm here representing actually the builder this evening, IG Construction, for the residents, proposed residents at 296 Mills Court. And Megan, you're going to have to just push the button. There we go. Okay. The proposed structure is, it will be on a vacant residential lot. The lot is 4,410 square feet, 46 by 97 feet. The existing home was demolished in 2009 for life safety purposes. They had issues and they needed to take it down. We're here because this is the replacement structure. There is a need for a zoning variance. Actually, there's a couple of variances that we'll be requesting that involve the front and rear side yard to allow a consistent relationship to the neighborhood, and I'll go over that in a moment as we go through our presentation. But it is meant to make the home consistent with the others. The proposed home, excuse me, the proposed home is 60 square feet under the allowable building scale, including detached garage. The Mills Court neighborhood is comprised of smaller traditional homes built in the early 1900s with simple but appropriate architectural details. We believe the proposed replacement structure is consistent with that design vernacular and will be a fitting addition to the street. As pointed out, it is at the end of Mills Court. It is on a vacant lot, and you'll note that there's a large area of land to the east of this. And as we get into presenting the streetscapes, it's difficult to see how this relates in photos, but it's important to note that the home directly at the end of the street is not directly adjacent to it in a sense that it is right next to it like the other homes. As reflected in this photo, is the best we can do under the circumstances. You can see there's a substantial amount of green area to the north of this property, or to this house that's reflected. This is a photo of the existing lot. As you can see, it's vacant. It is at the end of the cul-de-sac, and it does have a considerable amount of vegetation around the sides and rear. These are some of the homes that are on the street, and as you can see, they're articulated with very simple design elements. Basically, the colonial revival, there are some homes that are more of craftsman style, but basically there's a very simple detailing of these homes. Houses are very close to the street. It's a very tight neighborhood, but a very, very comfortable one. As you can see from the site plan, our proposal is to set the house in concert with the other homes on the street. For example, the house to the west. The lot area, as I pointed out earlier, is 4,410 square feet. The footprint for the home is 894 square feet. The footprint for the garage is 400, and the porches are 47. This puts us at the 30% ratio, which is required. As I pointed out, we are seeking approval for variance for the proposed residence in line with the home, and as you can see, and I hope you can see it from here, the 40-foot setback is significantly further back, and if we were to set the house at that distance, the house would not only be in character with the rest of the neighborhood because it would be set back so far, it'd be also very difficult to design a home for this lot. In addition to that, the garage, the proposed garage, will be 2 feet from the rear yard line. Actually, the other lots, the other garages are about a foot from the lot line. We tried to push it back further so that we could have a little more area for construction. When you dig the trench, you're able to stay on the property. The 6-foot setback, we initially wanted to go with a 6-foot setback with the east line, but we determined, or I should say staff determined, that there's a storm easement that runs through there, so we wanted to be respectful of that. Proposed home, as I pointed out earlier, is a very simple colonial revival style. with clapboard siding. We are using hardy board, by the way, for our material. We painted a warm gray with white trim. We're using Tuscan columns for the porch with brick pavers. There is a bay window. We intentionally made that more simplistic to keep in line or be in keeping with the rest of the homes on the street. And we are putting a trim around the windows that's historically consistent with this style of architecture. The roof material, we initially thought about an asphalt roof material for budgetary purposes and frankly to be in keeping with the rest of the street. However, staff has suggested that we consider cedar shingles, and we are considering cedar shingles for this home. By the way, the landscaping is an artist's rendition. It is going to be fairly lush, but I wish I could promise it's going to be that beautiful. The north elevation, which is the rear of the house, as you can see, we've tried to simplify the massings, the door, the canopy above the door with brackets. Everything is intentional to keep it more simplistic and true to its style. The windows will be simulated divided light. Again, they're white, and again, we tried very hard to keep a consistency on all 4 elevations. The east side of the house, which would probably be the more visible side of the house because of the large expanse of area on that side. Again, this is the driveway side, and as you can see, we tried to keep the windows consistent in their mass and scale. Same principle applied for the west elevation. Excuse me, I want to make a clarification. This is the side that the garage is, or the driveway is going to be on. And this would be the more visible side, and as you can see, we tried to keep that facade as balanced and as symmetrical as we possibly could. This is the garage that's proposed. Again, it's consistent with the style of architecture, using the same materials. And this is the streetscape view, which shows the existing houses. Again, in fairness, the house that's shown to the right is actually turned perpendicular to the proposed home, but we felt it was important for you to at least see how the architecture related to what we're proposing. I might add that we are 29 feet to the peak on our roof. And that completes my presentation, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready for any questions you and the board may have.
Thank you very much. Staff report, please.
All right, thank you, Chairman King. As was stated in 2009, the former structure was demolished due to roof collapsing and overall safety concerns of that. The request before you tonight is for approval of the architectural design and siding of the replacement structure. The proposed structure is aligned with other homes in the neighborhood to preserve the character of the streetscape. The siding of the home does require a setback variance, and all comments made tonight will be forwarded to the zoning board. Staff recommends approval of the architecture design and siding on the lot. In addition to approval, staff would also like to highlight some of the conditions of approval. Our first recommendation is that the proposed structure has simulated divided lights with interior and exterior mountain bars and a spacer bar to replicate the look of true divided light windows. And as was just stated by the petitioner, they are willing to consider our recommendations for the cedar roof shingles. It is also recommended from the staff that the board take into consideration that the staff and city engineer have flexibility in determining the final location of the garage. The structure as shown in the current site plan, it'll be in that general area, but as we receive more information on the road drain, that will be in consideration of where the final location will go. Also, the city arborist reviewed the proposed landscape plan and recommends that there be more plantings on the western property line, and that also a replacement tree is chosen that'd be different from the one that they've listed. And lastly, it is also recommended that a staging plan for construction be submitted. And also, as stated before, the staff recommends approval of the architectural design and siting, and we are here to answer any of the questions the board has. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board to the petitioner or staff? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Was this subdivision approved and built prior to the current setbacks?
This area was subdivided prior to the application of the GR3 setback requirements, yes.
So that creates the issue with the 40-foot setback that's incongruous with the size of the site and the street.
The subdivision and the fact that the area was previously developed or at a different time, closer to the street, the Building Review Board's criteria for siting of replacement structures does talk about consistency along the street. In this case, compliance with the 40-foot setback requirement for the zoning district would really create a pocket of the streetscape. So staff did encourage them to site the home in alignment with other homes along the street.
So is the proposed front yard setback an average of the existing homes? Or is it aligned with the neighbor to the, what is that, to the west?
The home is aligned with the home to the west. It's also proposed in generally the same location as the original home that was on that lot. That home was sited about 17 feet from the front property line, and this home is consistent with that.
The vacant property to the east, is that buildable?
The land to the east of this property is actually the rear yard of the homes that front on Edgewood.
Okay, so that's established. Thank you.
The roof, you're considering shingles, or you actually will be doing shingles?
Mr. Chairman, we are considering, I was actually talking with my client about that while the previous petitioner was up. The reality is, we're trying to keep this within budget and still provide a high level of quality. Rather spend the money on the true divided light windows and some of the architectural details. That said, I might also add the idea was to be consistent with the rest of the neighborhood, and we're not aware of any other roofs in the neighborhood that have cedar shingles on them. So it really comes down to the quality of the asphalt material that would be proposed. I guess what I would ask, and we're certainly willing to talk about it, if it's an issue that you feel and the board feels is important, we're not going to leave it on the table. We'd rather just get that settled and move on. Our preference would be to have the option, as long as whatever the material is selected in terms of the asphalt is appropriate, and that I would assume that's something that staff could easily determine. But again, I wouldn't want that to be a deal killer at this point.
The packet actually had a kind of a simulated slate, which I don't think would be appropriate. There's other obvious asphalt shingles out there, so is that at least off the table, this kind of a slate, faux slate, if you will?
I think the faux slate, simulated slate, was an implication that the asphalt would look like slate, as opposed to actually having what you and I might be used to, which is the rubber version or some of the other versions that are available. So I think that was the idea, was to select the asphalt material that had a slate-like look, charcoal and black with some green and so forth in it. Having said all of that, and by the way, it's appropriate for this style of architecture. But again, we're open to discussion on it at this point.
So if the roof material is not cedar, and the neighborhood does not have a precedent for cedar roofing, and it goes asphalt, would you consider dimensional asphalt?
Yes.
Architectural grade?
Yes, I think that was the intent in terms of using the word faux slate, for lack of a better way of putting it. I have clients that use that term all the time when they're referring to a heavier roof shingle. I guess the reason we're open is, and frankly, I think anybody would agree that a cedar shingle roof is more attractive and it's more true to this style. We're not here to dispute that. We're trying to be consistent with the neighborhood.
The garage door, what material is that going to be made out of?
I know what I would say, but I'm going to ask my client. Okay, that's the answer. The answer is wood. It'll be cedar. It'll be the carriage doors. I wanted to check with my client because as a builder, I'm used to them saying fiberglass or steel, and I'm very pleased to hear him say that it's cedar.
There is a significant amount of proposed impervious surface driveway, given the nature of the design, the site, the size of the site. How will that be addressed from a drainage standpoint?
Well, I think the easy answer is that we have an excellent engineering staff here in Lake Forest, and actually staff has been very thorough about identifying easements we didn't even know existed. I feel confident that from a drainage standpoint, Mr. Friedman, that we're going to have no problem addressing any kind of drainage issues. It's typically how I've handled it in the past. And that would include, if necessary, putting in inlets and so forth to be able to contain it properly.
Chuck, I have a question.
Now, in terms of the driveway and the impervious surface aspect of that, you'll note that we have paver bricks in the back motor court area. It was a sort of a creative way of incorporating a patio / driveway access, given the tight configuration, with the asphalt going to from that point to the street.
From what point, I'm sorry?
Well, I don't have maybe I do have a pointer. Do I have a pointer?
You can use the mouse to...
Oh, here we go. Right here. Can you see that? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, right here.
So it'll be pavers on the north side of that line?
Yes, that's correct. You can actually see I know it's difficult to see, but there's actually a specific delineation with notes that articulate exactly where it starts and where it begins,
Thank you.
or ends, I should say.
A question for staff, a clarification on a comment made in your write-up. The comment referred to the city as researching the location of a road drain believed to exist generally along the east property line. Can you clarify where you were going with that and if you have determined anything?
The exact location of that road drain is still being researched. We do know that a structure exists in that general area. Engineering staff has been looking at what is there and what the future plans for that road drain is. It is part of the system that connects Noble and Mills Court to the overall city system.
But it has nothing to do with the storms, what I believe was a storm sewer drain in the front yard of the property? That's not what you were alluding to?
It connects to Mills Court and runs north to Noble, the actual pipe along the east property line of this particular property. So at this time, we're still researching what that means. It doesn't mean that this lot can't be developed. The petitioner is certainly working with staff to locate buildings so that there is room to allow maintenance of that line in the future. The structure has been there, the engineering structure has been there since the original house was there. I believe it was part of the discussions at that time when that previous homeowner was working to remove the structure due to the hazardous condition. So there have been continual conversations about that piece with engineering staff.
Rick, the height to the ridge, how does that relate to the homes on the street?
It's consistent. In fact, here, I'll help you out here. I can tell you that the maximum height to the peak for this zoning lot is 30 feet, and we're at about 29 feet. We clipped the roof down so that we could stay with the 10-12 pitch, which we felt was the more appropriate roof pitch for this style. And as you can see, naturally, we're not consistent with the ranch house, but we wouldn't be regardless of what the pitch was. But the good news is that house is perpendicular, and there's a significant distance from that. But to answer your question, Mr. Friedman, if you look at the streetscape, and I can share with you some of the photos that we shared earlier, you'll see that the massing and height, and I apologize, I was trying more to get photographs that showed how the houses were adjacent to each other, but you can see that the height and mass of these houses is consistent. Actually, the houses that you see in this photo are directly across the street.
Mr. Swanson, good evening.
Hi.
I, excuse me. I actually got two questions.
Sure.
One is, the picture that you have, which is a great picture, has a double window on the east side, but the drawing has a single. And I'm hoping you're going with the double.
It's a good catch. That's what happens when you have a renderer in China do the work for you. If they had used my renderer, bang, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's foreign. I will tell you that if you look at the floor plans, which I believe you have, that is if I'm not mistaken, that was a stairwell. And we felt it was a little out of character for that area. It created kind of an awkward situation, so we decided to remove it. We could put a window on that side, but it would be a fake window, just for the sake of having the symmetrical aspect of this. And it was decided not to put that in.
Okay, so that's the first one. The second question is, I know that staff pointed out the issue of swapping these trees in the back for something a little bit bigger, a maple, removing the oak, putting a maple in. Have you guys considered that?
Well, I will tell you that it was another discussion I had with my client, and because I wasn't happy with the level of delineation in the landscape plan that was submitted, so I didn't want to embarrass anybody by actually putting it up on you all see it, you can all see what's there. To answer your question, it was my understanding, and the easy answer is that we're going to work with staff in any regard. But I was led to believe that we had already had this discussion and that we had already made the changes to the plan to incorporate that. So I guess the easy answer is that whether I'm right or wrong in that regard, the fact is that we are going to work with staff to make any adjustments that we need to do. I know one of the comments that was made by the forester is that they'd like to see a little more material planted on the west side of the house. And I know that there's not an issue complying with that. So in terms of making changes to the trees and so forth, I don't see that as being an issue unless, yeah, I didn't think so.
Thank you.
No, nothing further.
Okay. Now's a chance for the public, if anyone wants to step forward and ask a question or comment. Okay. Seeing none, staff, any further input? Okay. Any final input from the petitioner?
I have none.
Okay, great. Final questions, or do you want to take this to discussion?
I have a final question. Is this a spec home or a personal residence?
We prefer to use the word model home in this market, but it's not it's not a custom home for a client.
So it's a to-be-sold home?
That's correct. Adam is IG Construction they're contractors, and they're doing this on spec.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion, guys, open up. Ted, why don't we start with you?
The only thing I really would point out is that if an attractive, quality, dimensional shingle is used, I have no issue on that roof being cedar or asphalt.
Okay.
I think the home is in keeping with the character of the street, the massing, the setbacks, the style. Naturally, my last question regarding a model/spec home, that opens a few doors in terms of questions and concern over the ultimate product, the finished product, the willingness to landscape in accord with what we've discussed tonight, the quality of materials. Naturally, there's an incentive to produce a nice product so that it is marketable. However, it lacks the personal feeling. So that's it opens the door to a few questions related to what we discussed tonight, but I think overall, the concept is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think it's a nice, simple design. I don't see anything that pops out at me. I think it will fit nicely in the neighborhood, and I think the siting is appropriate to, with the other houses on Mills Court. So I'm in approval of this, and I do echo Ted that, be great to have cedar shingles, but a nice architectural dimension. I would not have a problem with that in that neighborhood.
I agree. I think the house is nicely designed and fits that neighborhood, and I think the siding of it is in character with that streetscape, so I can support this.
I agree. I think it fits the architectural and design criteria, and I think it fits the criteria for the variance that you're requesting too. I think the issue with the road drain is not really kind of our issue. It's the builder's issue, because if you find it when you're excavating, you're gonna have to deal with it.
Right.
Okay. Anyone with a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the petition as submitted based upon the findings stated in the staff's report. Incorporating the staff report, the comments here, agreements made, and then subject to the general and specific objections therein.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I don't even know what to do next time. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of requests for approval of additions to the residence located at 1418 North Green Bay Road. A building scale variance is being requested with this. The owners are Ralph and Mary Gasaludo. I'm sorry, I butchered that, I'm sure. Sorry. And Representatives Greg Howe, architect. Thank you very much.
Hello, yes, I'm Greg Howe. I'm a principal in Sterling Master Howe Architects, a Chicago architecture firm with a specialty in residential architecture. We have been engaged by the Giswaldos for a project, just very quickly, consists of 7 small elements, or elements to make the larger project. There's an expansion of the master suite, a reworking of the existing stairwell of the building, a addition of a second floor office space, an addition of a first floor office space, a conservatory in the southeast corner of the property, and the addition of a detached garage. It's a mixture of different elements that together reflect the Giswaldos' desire to maintain the usefulness of their house for the next 20 years. They've lived in the house. They built the house 20 years ago. They built it as a family house. Their needs have evolved, and we are working with them to maintain that, their commitment to the property. So in addition to the programmatic elements, there are some aesthetic design elements of the existing house we are hoping to improve upon with the project. The first one being the approach to the project. A series of images. Let me get this full screen. illustrate the approach to the house. The main volume of the house is a two-story structure, but as you approach the house on the driveway, your first encounter with built architecture is the one-story garage extension. It's a well-designed one-story garage extension, but at the end of the day, it is very obviously a garage as your first impression of the house, which we are trying to mitigate and rebalance the house, so to speak. This overall site plan, let me get this big. Excuse me here. Now I feel like the old fogey. View.
Just slideshow at the top,
Slideshow at the top.
from the top menu bar,
Aha.
view from current slide.
Thank you very much. So the site, you approach it from the northeast down a long driveway from Green Bay Road. The driveway extension of the property itself is 1.5 acres. For the purposes of the land volume bulk calculation, the property is 2.5 acres. So in total, the Swallows have 4 acres, of which 2.5 constitute the main property lot. These are some views looking at the site. This is looking north. The site is basically completely surrounded by vegetation. None of the neighboring properties are visible. None of the structures on the neighboring properties are visible. This is looking to the east, to the south, and to the west, which is the view of the Skokie Open Lands Preserve, which starts just in front of this tree line. So the existing structure, mainly shown here in blue, with additions on both the west and the east sides. This is the master suite. The existing garage, in concept, what we're doing is we're taking the four-stall existing garage and shifting it east. And the purpose for that, conceptually, I mean, it will be new construction, but the purpose is to provide for some expanded storage space within the house. So its arrangement relative to the driveway and relative to the parking area here will be consistent. This is the first floor office space that will be added to the structure. This is an existing pavilion that was built about 6 years ago that's used for dining and informal entertaining. This is the 2-car detached garage and the conservatory. Second floor of the house, we really aren't touching anything at all inside the house on the second floor of the existing structure, aside from reworking the staircase. But we're staying within the footprint of the house with that work. And then there's a second floor office space. These are a couple renderings of the conservatory. Our goal at the conservatory would be to build upon the existing language of the architecture of the house and the pavilion. The house consists of a series of hip roofs linked together in a picturesque arrangement that engages the landscape pretty successfully. So with this structure, that is indeed our goal with it. So this is a view from the north looking south. The staircase, we are reworking the roof line to better integrate with the existing roofs. We are opening it up more to give it more of a presence. So as you approach the house, it helps to balance the one-story garage wing. And then by adding second story space to the garage wing, we're trying to bring it into the scale of the house itself, so it doesn't stick out as much. And then an expansion of the master suite this way. This is a view from the south looking north at the second floor office space, the garage space, the first floor office space, the existing pavilion, and then in the background, the master suite. Looking east, this is basic, looking east, the master suite. What we wanted to do with this back west facade, and I just, I told part of the story just by referencing as the back facade, is it really is treated as a back facade now. We want to give it a little more presence and, bring it up on par with the rest of the house. So by adding a strong architectural element there, we give it a weight that it currently lacks. Other elements of the project include adding mullions to the second floor windows. The overall kind of concept of the house when it was built was a stripped down classical, almost Palladian concept. But I think over the years it was realized that perhaps it was stripped down a little too much. And so what we're trying to do with this project is add some more scale detail to the project, some richness. So by building out the windows, I think we're reaching that goal. We're giving more presence to the entry to the house by expanding the existing limestone surround, which again is part of the effort to rebalance the house. I think I've covered most of the information here, which just outlines the different areas of the house of expansion. This is the existing footprint. Existing first floor here, second floor. The existing elevations are below the proposed on top. Likewise, the existing pavilion. The material palette we're using on the additions is consistent with the existing house. We're not introducing any new materials. The stucco, cedar shingles, copper of the existing house, limestone will be repeated. They're very strongly established with the existing design, and we didn't feel comfortable straying from that palette whatsoever. The style of the house is a unique one. It melds a lot of different classical historical styles into what ultimately is, as I just said, a pared down classical country house. So it's difficult to pigeonhole it. That pared down quality allows us to add elements, the second floor office as well as the bay windows and other elements that are a little more evocative of our era, but still consistent with the architecture of the house. The impact of the overage, we believe, is minimal given how large the site is, how protected it is from the neighbors by the exceptionally heavy vegetation. We have been sensitive to not building too much on one side of the property, which is as a result you see additions here, there, which is more kind of a consistent spreading out of the existing footprint. One of the strongest justifications for the building scale variance is we've looked at different ways of laying out the program that the Gesualdos would like to have, which includes the garage. Ralph Gesualdo has interests in the automobile industry, so the idea of having a couple extra parking stalls is something that he would be very interested in. Mary is an avid gardener, hence the conservatory and added storage space in the garage. Which reflects the fact that they're spending more time at this house, and they plan to for the foreseeable future. We tried to focus our additions on the first floor, keeping an eye on long-term accessibility. The second floor office is effectively the only work we're doing on that level. Otherwise, everything is a step-free space. As a result, we ended up with a plan that may have been more efficient had we added more bulk to the second floor, but all things considered, that's my timer? All right. All things considered, keeping things on the first floor is highly desirable, and I think we've been fairly successful, very successful at how we've taken that approach. So, open the floor to questions, comments?
Okay. Thank you very much. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chairman King. Over the years, the board has really carefully considered variances from the building scale ordinance and considering consistency with the code to ensure that properties do not become overbuilt or disproportionate in relationship to other homes in the immediate area. In this case, there are circumstances that would merit consideration by the board of a building scale variance. The fact that it is relatively isolated, the access road from Green Bay Road is very long. This is at the end of that private drive. There is landscaping around the perimeter of the property that really keeps this structure self-contained to the site itself. Additionally, the property to the west is land permanently zoned as open space. Overall, the project does appear to meet the standards in the code. This design is more contemporary than some of the projects typically reviewed by the Building Review Board. Certainly your input and direction on the overall architecture is welcome this evening. With respect to the building scale variance request, the code requires that the design standards be met for the project, as well as one additional standard specifically related to the building scale ordinance. In this case, this project meets standards number 2, 3, and 4 with respect to landscaping mitigating the impacts of additional mass, the proportion of the structure in relationship to the existing structure and surrounding properties, and overall design. While this property is adjacent to land that's zoned as open space, because of the existing landscaping, you really don't perceive the openness of that adjacency. But certainly it is there, and it will not be developed in the future. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Staff did present some recommended conditions of approval with respect to window proportions, just to make sure that there's not a narrow strip of construction between the windows and the hip roofs that are proposed, and we welcome your comments on those as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Questions from the board to staff or the petitioner?
Oh,
Megan?
go ahead. No, sorry.
Go ahead.
Question for the architect. I like the idea of adding the mullions to the windows. My question is why you're not taking it all the way. It seems awkward that you're applying it in some cases, but not in others.
Our general rule is the second floor windows, which are punched openings rather than floor-to-ceiling glass, are the windows where we're adding those mullions, or on the first floor where it's a similar proportion. Most, where you do see large panes of glass, with the exception of the second floor, those are all existing openings with the existing windows. And we looked at adding those mullions. It became a little overwhelming on the overall scale of the house if every window was treated the same way. An element of the house that it's hard to translate in a PowerPoint presentation is how engaged it is with the landscape. The views are open. There's the luxury of privacy on the property. So the very open views that you get from these large panes of glass are something that would be hard to lose.
And I absolutely agree. My only question is, go one way or the other, and it's, in my eye, it looks awkward that you're mixing and matching. Other than that, I have no other comment.
Megan, what is the building scale that's being, variance that is being requested?
The exact request is for 9.5% over the allowable.
And am I interpreting this correctly, that the proposed impervious surface is reduced
Yes.
by about 1,400
And that was that's a
feet?
very important detail I overlooked. There's an existing basketball court on the site that we are taking away and restoring to green, to plantings. So maybe pull that up on the site plan. Leave it to the architect to forget the thing that isn't already in 3 dimensions. This is the existing paved area, which is about 40 by 50 feet. Or 40 by 50. So we're taking that up. The greenhouse takes up a small portion of that space. So with all the additions, the irony of this is we actually are reducing the impervious substantially.
What year was this home initially built?
About 20 years ago. 18? Okay.
Question for the architect on, do you have any comment on the staff's comment about the windows in the master suite and the office?
I think that is something that we could take further look at. The process that ended up with that window was, this is a relatively small space inside the house, but programmatically, it's one of the most important spaces. It's where Mary Giswaldo will be spending bulk of her time, and we wanted it to have a little more presence on the facade to express how important it would be in daily life. And it is evocative, although not directly taken, but it's evocative of the cross pediment that appears on the pavilion, which together, those would be viewed as part of the south facade. And likewise, on the west side, I think probably the best drawing to illustrate this are the elevations.
Do you think that's in keeping with the architectural style, knowing that it's kind of hard to pinpoint an architectural style? It just kind of jumps out at you and doesn't seem to quite fit, does it?
I think our intent was to purposely add a new element, but an element that works in balance with the existing elements in the house. There is a variety to the house, but there's also an order. The roofs, which we were very sensitive about maintaining those proportions and materials and details, act as a very strong unifying element. The material of the boxed openings would be a browned copper that would, it's the material used on the trim, the gutters and downspouts of the house already. So it's keeping in the material palette, but it is, it is a departure from the existing language of the house, but that was a purposeful step.
The, you say there's a box opening, it did look like it protruded a little bit. How far does that go out, that copper box feature that you're referring to there?
This element here, it projects just beyond the existing eave line, which is at 2 feet, so it's about 2.5 feet out from the face of the wall, but only about 6 inches out from the actual eave line.
And it's just 100% copper from all the way through?
The inside, it would transition to a different material inside the house, but the two faces of either wall and I guess the roof line of the structure would be in copper.
Okay. The new element on the garage expansion, kind of that second story element with some windows there, the staff had made the comment that lighting would be important there because you're up 2 stories with all that glass. Have you thought more about that at all?
I think lighting is going to be a very important part of this project, and it definitely has become part of the discussion already. This is a study space. It's going to be comfortably lit. It's not going to be, by any means, a lantern. I think we're going to be very sensitive to that, and I think the feedback is very, it's very welcome. I think one of the goals is that we continue the precedent of engaging the site with the house, and using this wraparound glass gives us that opportunity. So I think with that, the lighting does become a concern, but I think we can mitigate any glare issues pretty successfully.
And then,
Engage a lighting designer?
We pride ourselves in largely handling that in-house. We do bring in lighting designers in certain circumstances, and this may warrant that.
You started your discussion talking about the entryway, and when you come into the driveway to the house, it's not real clear. You know, your first impression is the one-story garage element. You're not moving the driveway at all, or are you? Or what?
No.
What's really being done to kind of address that that issue that you noted?
Well, the driveway itself, we are not changing its footprint, and there frankly wouldn't be much opportunity to change sort of the geometry of the entry, given the nature of the access road. Since you enter in at the corner, you essentially necessarily approach that one-story wing. So our intent is, by bringing it up to the scale of the existing house, it stands out less. So by making it bigger, it has less of a presence, or less of a incongruent presence.
Anything else, Bob? Do you have any questions?
Good evening, Mr. Howe. I actually have a couple questions. One on the lighting plan, and your comment not to be a lantern. That's actually pretty good. Will you guys commit to making sure that it's not a beacon
Definitely.
bright, that's not going to affect the neighborhood and the neighbors?
And I think that's consistent with the concept of, you know, really being one with, you know, I'm sounding a little kumbaya here, but being one with the site. I mean, I think engaging the site, it's one of the most distinct things with this property, and it really is one of the most impressive things. It's a beautiful property. And I think you have to be as sensitive to that in nighttime conditions as in daytime.
And then my second one is, how close is the neighbor to the east?
As best as we could estimate, we don't have a survey with their house precisely located, but it is approximately 165 feet from the new garage.
So building to building.
Yeah, 165.
And then how about the first gentleman to the west? I shouldn't say gentleman, first house owner to the west.
To the west is the open lands
Okay, then how about?
property.
how
To
about
the
this
south, it's so far, I can't, at least 250 feet.
And it's actually, it's the back of, it's somebody's backyard. The house is set way up front. That's Howard Simpson's house.
Okay,
And it's set up front, so we really can't see his house, which is backyard.
so basically the foliage that you have between the properties is so dense that this light's not gonna penetrate.
Correct. I didn't know there was a house to the south until I saw the aerial photograph.
Okay, thank you.
I think a couple points with the design of the house. One is, there's an interesting collection of houses as you work your way down this access road. And it's a medley of designs. And this house itself, it's not a truly historic design that we started with. There's a modern sensibility to it already in the fact that its details are pared down. And we feel that that gives us license to further that concept with the bay windows in the second floor. It'd be different if there wasn't that precedent to react to.
But looking at the existing elevations, it does seem to have some consistency across all the facades. And so are you comfortable with the proposed, that you're gonna kind of keep that same character, or you're looking to deviate from that?
We're looking to build upon the existing character and not, there's a lot of beautiful things working with the house that, you know, we don't want to compromise. And so, yes, we're adding new elements that aren't already on the structure, but we feel they're in keeping with the spirit of the structure. I think the other thing that part of the story is not told in the sense that we're not showing any landscaping at all in these elevations. But given how heavily vegetated the site is, something like this air condenser would be, enclosure would be completely invisible. I mean, that very much is the intent. And so that element is not part of the 2D drawings. But it definitely is part of the design of the property.
Is there a proposed landscape plan for the new additions?
The new additions, we have not developed it yet. The new additions don't take away any substantial existing growth. There's minor surface, ground cover. We will get to that point, and it will be, I think, consistent with the spirit of the landscaping that is currently on the property.
Any other questions? Okay. Now a chance for any public testimony? Okay. Seeing none. Staff, any further input? Okay. Mr. Howell, any other final thoughts here?
No.
Okay. All right, we'll take it to board discussion. Any final questions, gentlemen, before we turn on this? Okay.
I have a general comment.
Sure. Go ahead.
Given the extraordinary seclusion of this site and its large setting, there really is no relationship to the neighborhood, to the community. So you have that obviously working in your favor. Frankly, I would, if this were not did not have the benefit of those conditions, and it was a related plan with the various additions, I think we'd have a much different discussion tonight. But the fact that it is secluded and it is surrounded and it does back up to open lands and it is a five acre or so site, I think that it's successful.
Ted, any thoughts?
Nothing more to add.
I'm struggling mightily with this. It's a very interesting property. The site itself is beautiful. Great setting. The house itself is really, I think you had difficulty kind of explaining the architectural style. It really is kind of a combination of things, and the pool pool house is gorgeous. It flows. It's hard to pinpoint, so when I look at the additions, I say, well, that's not in keeping with X, Y, Z, but the fact is, I don't know if you really can, and the fact that it is secluded, I think the additions are okay with what we have here, as long as the tower element has lighting that is appropriate and not the beacon we talked about. I think I can support this, and I think when all's said and done, I think it actually might just work, and I think it's going to be, in keeping with the spirit of this property going forward.
I think the site is situated right where you can support the variance, the bulk variance, because of the unique circumstances with the site. And I agree, the house is kind of unique and it's off by itself, so I can support it.
I agree. Because it's so isolated, it's easy to, it fits all the criteria for an exception to the maximum floor area. And I think it fits the architectural and design criteria too. It's all supported.
And I think we do have several new board members, and this is the first real variance, bulk variance we've encountered here, and I just for public record, we do not take these kind of additions lightly, and there usually is a very big tug and pull here on these kind of additions, but for all the reasons we talked about here tonight, I think there does seem to be a consensus here, but we will, in future cases that are before us, we do take our job very seriously and try to remain objective, and just wanted that entered into the notes as well. So, with all that in mind, do we have a motion here tonight?
I'll move to approve the petition as submitted, based on the findings as stated, on the condition that a landscape plan is presented, of course, in accordance with codes and ordinance, and thoroughly reviewed and approved by staff, as well as the beacon is addressed and appropriately vetted with staff.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing? Anybody need a break at all?
I'm okay to keep going if you want.
Ed, are you okay?
Good, thanks.
Okay, we'll plow on then. Again, the agenda item 6 has been postponed. We'll go into agenda item 7, which is a consideration of a request for approval of the demolition of the residence located at 41 June Terrace and approval of replacement structure, site plan, and landscape plan. Brian and Reda Germain, the owners, represented as Jeff Lynch and the contractor, and Michael Malloy, designer. Welcome. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Mike Malloy with Lynch Construction, here on behalf of the Germains. Here to discuss the removal and replacement structure of 41 June Terrace. I've got a brief presentation here. I've got a little criteria I'm going to go through. One will be demolition, then I'll go into the site, as well as some site improvements and existing site features. And with the architectural design, I'll try to keep it brief, but I think all these elements kind of work together to create the cohesive plan that we have. The existing house, I just have a few pictures here that I wanted to go through to kind of show the condition of the house. It's in pretty bad shape. It's been neglected for quite a while. You can see that the windowsills are all rotted out. It's been trying to foamed over, but never taken care of. I think it's contributed to significant rot. This picture here, I think, is really important because it shows the existing grades of the house and how it's piled up against the house there. Not quite sure how or why that happened, but again, that grade is up against the walls of the house, and so it's for sure rotting out the wood rather than being protected by a concrete foundation that would generally be raised up a little bit. This is probably what would have been the front entryway in significant decay there. You can see the retaining walls are canted and broken and falling apart. Big time grade issues here. You can see the house is very close to the existing lot line. The grades are pitched pretty steeply, so all the rainwater is going towards the neighbors. Right here, foundation, you can see that it's cracked. The walls are bowing right along here. The house is actually was probably more than one structure at some point. Someone did a large addition, tied it together, very dissimilar materials. You can see the windowsills are completely different. The little junction right there doesn't quite work. Moving on to the grades, kind of as I pointed out there, the drainage is a serious issue. We contacted or employed a civil engineer to thoroughly study the property, created a comprehensive drainage plan, and he did a very good job. And significantly, I just want to point out in his site section the methods in which he's doing. He's cutting a swale into the property on this side, which would be the north side of the house right here. And then on the driveway side, which would be the south side, what he's implementing is a long curb along the driveway that will virtually eliminate any kind of runoff from either the north or south where a lot of the water's going right now. And so that curb is continuous along the entire driveway side there, and it's going to channel all the water to the storm sewers in the front, and anything that gets in the back will be exited towards the rear of the property. The other thing I wanted to point out was the existing driveways. The existing driveway butts up against the neighboring driveway and creates a very kind of peculiar thing there. They meet, there's a fence there, some of it's gone, some of it still remains. And so part of our new site plan was to kind of alleviate these side yard constraints. And so what we've done here, and I just kind of highlighted in blue, is actually created near a 4-foot separation. That's going to be vegetation, it's going to be plantings. If you look at the landscape plan, there'll be some trees put in there. And that's going to create a buffer. and as well as if there any kind of rainwater that comes in there is going to be absorbed. And so you can see it's wider at the front, kind of narrows a little bit at the back, and then it increases again towards the rear of the house. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the site placement. You can see the existing house is set really far back from the street. It's actually, I believe, 83 feet. One of our, in trying to site the house, we wanted to align it with the existing neighborhood. And as well, we also held the house a little bit off the north property line. The setback is 6 feet, sorry. And we wanted to go 8 feet there. Again, that allowed us to kind of cut that swale in and get the drainage to work. Existing footprint, new and existing. You can see existing footprint here is, 1,156 square feet. Our proposed footprint, porch excluded, is 1,025, so it's actually a little bit less. Adding the open porch in, we're, I think, 60 square feet larger. So it's very comparable space, it's just better sited on the lot. Talking about the streetscape here, I think by siting the house as we're doing, we're restore the streetscape to kind of where the rest of the neighborhood is. So this photo right here is just, it was taken from the front lot line where we want to site the house, and you can sort of see how all these houses are almost perfectly in plane. This is a Google Earth image. Red lines here are hard to see, but that's actually, we measured, every house to the property line, and they're nearly all identical. So the house is, our existing house back here, and we're going to move it up. Landscape plan, these are just some, sample plantings, images of what we have entitled here. Arborvitae is going to be planted along here, on the south property line to screen. We've got some nice maple trees going in here. These are existing trees we're keeping. We are losing a couple, but we have significant planting going on. They've got some gardening and vegetable garden planned back here, as well as plenty of screening to the east there. This is just some precedent. We looked a lot at what type of architecture we're trying to achieve, and so we looked at some precedents of houses that we've seen that are similar. So again, this is we have a front gabled house. It's very consistent with the American vernacular precedent. It's derived, I would say, from the Greek Revival architecture of the early 1800s, when architects were looking for a more formal expression of what American architecture might be, and they went towards this pedimented style that was consistent with Greek temples, and then that became adapted to residential style. And this style works very well for narrow suburban urban lots, and so it works. You see, it's I guess common in a lot of architecture. This house right here is actually, we found in this North Shore book, it was found in it's in Lake Bluff. It's one of the few remaining, I guess, of this era, as they explain that a lot of it has been lost. These are just a couple other styles. Very, very clean, concise forms, strong dominant gables, and very consistent with porches. There are many hip roof porches as we're proposing. Another source that we frequently go to a lot is this Field Guide to American Houses, and you can see here, very similar house to what we're proposing, hipped porch roof, dominant gable, very similar. Again, just more precedent. This is our front elevation. Per staff's recommendation, we did add the chimney back in, and so we think that anchors the house real nicely. You can see on our material board right there the kind of color we're striving for. Again, simple, clean lines. What we're doing is just kind of chasing a very well-detailed house that is concise in its expression and not overly detailed as the vernacular canon is. So we have our cedar columns are here, frames the front entry as well as the windows. We have open soffits. We're going with a cedar shingles, which is real cedar, and then we're proposing hardy board for the clap siding. Double hung windows that'll be wood with a traditional wood trim. Side elevation, again, just, that ridge follows through. There's our porch, divided light windows pretty much everywhere. There's a chimney. We're putting limestone shoulder there, which is responding to this window up here as the chimney is offset a little bit. Rear elevation, again, pretty consistent. We have a little pent roof above the rear door, proposing a custom carved cedar bracket there, which, we'll make in our shop. Cedar shingles, again, in the gable ends. This elevation is, again, real similar. Very, very clean roof line. There's that little cedar bracket that we have above our rear door. There's our porch. Kitchen windows, windows line up pretty nicely. Some of the details that I was mentioned before, we're going with an open soffit, which is very common in this style. It's, different from kind of soffits you see now, which are boxed in. This is, it's got a wood, opening, I should say wood-covered soffit at the opening underneath. We're gonna have continuously vented with screen. The columns will be cedar columns. This is just construction, how we're gonna make them, rather than use full cedar, which will twist over time. We use a built-up 2x6. We fur it out with cedar, and then, wrap the base in the top as well. I think this is my last slide, so I'll just say the double hung window right there, again, nice wide casing, sill with 1-inch ears on it, and an apron beneath it. These will be simulated divided light windows, as the staff likes, with divisions on both sides of the glass and spacers in between the glass. Lastly, garage elevations. Wood garage door, all the soffit details, and trim to match the house. That's it. Be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman King. There are two requests before the board this evening, the request for the demolition of the existing house and the request for the design of the replacement structure. With respect to the demolition, the petitioner did provide some information to support the demolition request, including a structural engineer's report outlining the condition of the existing structure. Given the lack of structural integrity or architectural integrity, staff does support the demolition request. Attempts to renovate the structure would ultimately result in a full demolition request. Given the condition of the structure, there'd also be some challenges with respect to constructing those additions and the required zoning variances that would be needed due to the siting of the existing house. The replacement structure does improve the siting on the street. This is an example of a home being sited further back on the lot, creating a visual pocket along the streetscape. The proposed siting of the home does align with other homes along the street and is consistent with the platted setbacks for this area. The architectural design appears to meet the standards in the code. The materials are appropriate for the neighborhood and consistent with the architectural style. This is a neighborhood of older homes, very simple form, simple in the level of ornamentation, and I think the proposed design maintains that level of simplicity. So I would be happy to answer any questions, but staff does recommend approval of both the demolition and the replacement structure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions from the board to either the petitioner or the staff?
I do.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I do. This drainage issue that came up, do you guys feel comfortable that it's solved with this design that they have?
Engineering staff has reviewed the preliminary information that was submitted. There certainly appears to be a workable solution. In cases like this where the lots are very small, engineering staff does request additional information at the time of building permit to really confirm that the proposed construction will not negatively impact the surrounding properties and is consistent with our code.
Great.
There is at the request of engineering staff, the curb was extended along the driveway to really help direct the water toward the street and away from the neighboring properties.
Right. And I did notice that you did, staff recommended putting in the fireplace.
Yeah, we had it in there initially, and we're trying to stay true to our, our client's budget. We removed it. We did need it as far as, modern day furnaces are involved, but we added the fireplace back in, and the chimney looks nice in the house, so.
Could you flip back to that slide that shows that elevation?
The
The
side?
north, the north elevation?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks.
This will be a functional fireplace, it's not just being done for aesthetics?
No, it'd absolutely be a functional fireplace. A wood-burning fireplace, I should say.
How does the height, 30-some-odd feet, relate to the neighborhood?
It's very consistent. Actually, I believe the neighbor to the north is slightly a higher ridge. But the neighborhood is a mix of 1- and 2-story homes. I would say probably leaning more towards the 2-story side, so it's very consistent, I would.
With the home being pulled forward, how does the setback relate to the neighborhood?
It's completely consistent with the setback. It's aligning with nearly every house in the street.
What's the style of architecture?
It's an American vernacular architecture. It's kind of it derived from Greek Revival. It's very consistent with farm type houses, and I guess it's really just it's very consistent with early 18th century to mid 18th century architecture. I guess it might be leaning a little bit towards colonial.
Go ahead, Ted. Looking around at your elevations, a number of the second floor windows and some of the first floor windows are awfully small. I'm just saying in terms of living space and the amount of light that's getting into those rooms, is there a thought process why you made them so small?
Sure, absolutely. The windows, these two small windows right here, would just, this is the family room, is facilitate, TV entertainment center if they choose. These two small windows are just small windows on either side of the bed wall, so we can get a nightstand underneath each window. And I believe this window right here is a small bedroom window, but if we go around the front elevation, that same bedroom has 2 large windows there. So again, it's just to facilitate furniture placement. Going around the house, this window's in the master bathroom between 2 vanities. So again, it's trying to keep that windowsill above the vanity height and not to interfere. This window right here is in the mudroom, so again, an opportunity to put benches or built-ins in the mudroom area and keep the house functional. It's a small house, so we have large windows in the primary living areas, large windows in breakfast room, large windows in the master bedroom. So all the bedrooms have very large windows. I actually just completed a light and vent table for this yesterday, and it well exceeds all the other requirements.
Thank you.
The front porch columns, what is that material going to be?
That'd be cedar.
Cedar, and look rather narrow. Is that in keeping with that architectural style, or is
Exactly,
that's
yes.
on purpose? Yeah.
Yeah, it is keeping the style. It's even a little larger than the original style. You can see that in this style, they actually had pretty small columns. The features are very small, concise. This one in particular right here, it's hard to see on your screen. On mine, it's a little bit easier. They're actually small turn columns or small square columns. So per staff's recommendation, we actually even had them smaller to try to be truer to the style. We beefed them up a little bit, so actually 7 by 7 square at the middle, and the base they'll be, I believe, 10.5 by 10.5.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
What is the proposed color?
It's gonna be a shade of this sample right here. It's kind of like a very light, beige cream.
Is that the product?
Yeah, that is the Hardy Board product. I don't know if that's exact, one we'll be using, but, that is that manufacturer. I think there's some variation on what type of grain you can get and that sort of thing, the different manufacturers.
And the roof is asphalt shingle,
Yes, an architectural grade,
architectural
yeah.
shingle, and then what about the roof above the front porch? What will that be?
That would be architectural
That'll
shingle
be
as well.
matching,
Mhm.
okay.
Could you give us a little more detail on the landscape plan, particularly on the south elevation and along the driveway, like how
Sure.
that might look?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just turn to that. Okay, unfortunately, my color copy didn't scan very well, so I just ended up doing it in pen, but I can kind of describe what the plan is here. Along the south here, he's proposing 3 of these, he calls sunset red maples, 1, 2, 3, and he's proposing arborvitae screening here. He's got some ground cover in between the trees, and I believe more arborvitae here. Towards the back is a 6-foot fence, I think, which kind of starts maybe towards the face of the garage and then works its way around back. He has another red maple proposed right here. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work with the swale. I'd have to, confer with the civil engineers to make sure that that's compatible. If it's not, we'll obviously keep that tree, but just perhaps move it. These 2 trees right here are existing. This is a pine, I believe. I think this might be a maple. I'm not positive. Along the back, he's got a mixture of these different things. He's got a purple 9-bark, which is this plant right here. He's got that proposed along this south line of the house. And he's got various plantings. This is another crab tree that he's using. He's using boxwoods to frame the front porch, which I think would be really nice. He's got a flagstone patio out back, and I believe a flagstone patio leading to the driveway. And as I mentioned earlier, I think he's proposed a vegetable garden back there. And the rest is, all be grass. I think the only place he even has mulch is maybe just along the house line right there.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Now an opportunity for the public to come forth. Anyone? Okay. Staff, any final comments, issues?
Just to mention that there was a letter at your places from a neighbor supportive of the project.
Okay, thank you. Any final thoughts?
No. I
From
don't think
petition?
so.
Okay. All right, goes to our discussion. Any questions before we? No questions? Okay. Okay. Anybody like to start off?
Well, the existing home is certainly in disrepair, and very easy approval for demolition. The proposed new residence is in keeping with the streetscape and neighborhood. Certainly an improvement to what's there now. The scale, we've been told, is in keeping with the character. What's there now is hidden behind that large tree. Did you mention what happens to that?
We'll be losing a couple trees in the front. There's a large maple, which is, sort of right in the center of the property. It's unfortunate, it's impossible to save. And then there's another pine tree that is I think in failing health that will be removed. The other 2 trees in the front yard we're keeping.
So it will make a new impact on the street. Because what's there now is hidden behind those large trees.
Correct.
It's in a dilapidated state, and it's very small. This will have much more of a presence on the street, but is in keeping with all the codes, as well as the massing, the styling, the materials.
I think it'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood right now. It feels like there's a big gap there with that lot the house pushed so far back. And I think it's in character with the neighborhood, so I can support it.
And that, actually, the hole that's in the streetscape going towards South Park over there is really odd. So this will definitely, you know, it fits the demolition criteria, I believe, and it fits the architectural and design, as long as all the materials are up to par. And as long as that drainage issue gets resolved.
Sure.
Then, yeah.
Ted, any?
The only thing that I would add pertaining to that, the trees in the front yard that would be getting lost is visually they look overgrown anyhow. I don't, even though you're losing trees, it needs attention, and I feel that what you've proposed is certainly a significant improvement to the streetscape.
Yeah, I concur. I'm supportive of this petition. I like the architectural style, very simple, and I think that's very much in keeping with that neighborhood. And I really think the demolition is warranted as well. So we'll need two motions, and one for the demolition and one for the replacement structure. If maybe we could do the demolition first.
I'll do it. I move that the petition for demolition as presented here be approved as is.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion's approved.
And then I would move to approve the petition for the construction of the new residence as submitted, based upon the findings that's in the staff report, and incorporating not only those findings, but also the commentary here today, and the general and specific conditions stated.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is the consideration of request for approval of a major addition and alteration to the residence located at 893 Beverly Place. Owners are Thomas Carabine and Nicole Altunian. A representative is Peter Whitmere, who's actually not here and has been replaced with George Fisher. Welcome, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you.
Looks like we need Peter.
All right, George.
Okay. Like you said, my name is George Fisher. I represent Whitburn Associates. I'm here tonight to present a proposed addition to the existing house at 893 South or Beverly Court. We're doing this addition to meet the functional needs of the family.
Mr. Fisher, sorry to interrupt you. Is there any way you can kind of get that microphone a little closer to you, or?
I could do that.
There we go. Great. Thank you.
Let me start over.
No.
Okay. During our design phase of this, we explored several options and reached the chosen design, including the pushing the garage forward on the lot. We decided that wasn't going to work because we'd have to be too much reconfiguring out the driveway. I looked at another addition further to the south in the back, and we also looked at changing the roof line on the house. But we decided that we discarded all these designs in favor of the design submitted because of their impactability. The design selected has a massing that is more appropriate to the existing house and neighborhood. At least we felt that way. The new addition will include a new basement area, which they don't have currently. They just have a crawl space, and that addition will include, the basement will include a mechanical room and a recreation room. The first floor will be reworked to provide a new modern kitchen and a family room in the back of the addition with a laundry room and the reworking of the living and dining areas. And on the second floor, we've added a new master suite and an additional bedroom, number 3, and revamped the existing bedroom, or one of the existing bedrooms. From the street elevation, we not changed the front of the house, except for we've changed the windows along the front facade, a few of the windows along the front facade to be more consistent, so that we get an overall more consistent design across the whole front of the house. And these are pictures of the existing houses in the neighborhood. There's a very wide variety of houses in the area. Well, actually, this is the existing house from the front and the sides and the rear. And the existing houses in the neighborhood are very, very eclectic in design and are very similar in nature to those. When you look at the new addition from the front, you won't be able to see it very much. It's very much hidden, so it doesn't impact the front of the street elevation at all. And these are just additional views of other houses in the neighborhood. And then the side elevation, keeping all the materials pretty much similar to what was there, or keep matching the existing materials. Roof will be cedar shingles, the siding will be wood siding to match the existing, and the brick will match the existing brick, and the windows will match the existing window design. The back portion of the addition where the new family room will be is a little bit higher because we wanted to get volume in that room to get a 9-foot ceiling in there, so it felt more in scale with the size of the room itself. And that's just a copy of the rear elevation there. And as far as the site is concerned, we're keeping, nothing changes in the front, so all the heritage trees are retained. And in the rear, we've removed about 11 trees, but they're all not heritage type trees, and they're small. We're going to replace them with new trees that are will match on an inch-by-inch basis of what's been removed. They will include some birch trees over in this area and a row of arborvitae to help us screen off to the neighbor to the south, screen the new addition off to the south. And finally, we reviewed the comments from the board, or from the staff rather, and agreed to the recommendations of, in order to reduce the mass of the addition, we've dropped the rear dormer down so the eave line matches the existing eave line of the existing back dormer. And then the new addition, we dropped, or the link between the new family room and the existing house, we dropped that eave line down as well. And finally, the other thing we've done is we've taken into account the recommendation of changing the detailing of the eave lines and eave boards so they are more consistent and match the existing. And I have some pictures of what the existing looks like. So we'll match what this looks like. You know, the siding and the brick, all the materials will match the existing. And that ends my presentation. I'm open for comments.
Thank you very much. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman King. This project is before the board. Due to the large scope of the project, there is a significant amount of demolition and a rather large addition proposed to the rear of the house. There are also, as was noted by the petitioner, several trees in that area that will be removed with this request. Given the small scale of the existing structure, the new design really maximizes the space on both the first floor, a new basement, as well as second floor living space. So in order to find a balance between the scale of the existing house and the desired living spaces of the new addition, a lot of the second floor space is built within long shed dormers. So I think the proposed modifications that were presented this evening help to mitigate some of those large shed dormers. The petitioner has also added some shutters on the second floor windows to really help break up the expanse of those dormers and provide a more regular rhythm to the project. A landscape plan was presented in your packets, and over time, the proposed landscaping will also help mitigate some of the views from neighboring properties. We would ask, as the project moves through the permitting process, that a landscape plan complete with size and species at the time of planting be provided to really ensure that, particularly along the property lines, that is installed at a large enough capacity to do some screening from the beginning. The proposed addition is taller than the existing house, but it's kind of a trick of the eye. When you're standing at street level, you actually look up at this house, and because of those angles, the petitioner has provided some three-dimensional modeling to really show that the addition will be screened from the street. I would be happy to answer any questions. Staff is recommending approval this evening of the project with the conditions as noted in your report. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Now time for questions from the board to either staff or petitioner.
Mr. Fisher, how are you doing tonight?
Good.
A couple things I noticed in the drawings was it didn't indicate that all the windows had the same type of mullion, I forgot how you pronounce that word, mutton effect to them. Are they all gonna be consistent around the
Yes,
house?
they will be. The existing rooms on the existing portion, they're not gonna do anything with those except for on the front facade like we showed, until they go and change the side. If they're gonna do modifications in the side rooms at a later date, they will change the windows out at that time.
And then they were talking about the landscape plan that's gonna come in, and you're agreeable to that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could you repeat your comment about the windows?
Okay, as far as we're changing the windows on the front facade so they're more consistent with the rest of the house, but on the sides where the existing rooms remain on the existing house, we're not gonna change those. When the owner decides they wanna modify those rooms at a later date or update them, they will update the windows at that time.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure, please.
You don't have a picture what the houses look to the left and the right of this one, do you?
Yes, I do. I believe this is the house to the north and this is the house to the south.
Okay, great. Thank you.
How tall is the existing house and how tall is the addition gonna be?
That I don't know offhand. Yeah, the new addition will be about 2.5 feet higher than the existing house.
And how does that relate to the neighborhood?
The house actually next door matches that height. There's a little bit taller than that.
The staff mentioned you have a mock-up or a 3D model that kind of shows from the street what it would look like. Could you show us that again, please?
I can't.
If you've got it.
It's a mass study. This shows the front facade. The addition is this piece right in here that you can see from the street. So it's very little that you're gonna see.
It's a high elevation, change in elevation.
Yes, it is.
And then can you show the south elevation, please?
Of the house?
Yes, please, of the house.
Let me just show you. That's what we had given you in your package, and this is what we changed it to based on the staff recommendations to show the rake boards to match the existing.
Okay, yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that that was the one that, and that's the one that, as proposed now, that'll be the
Yeah,
second one.
well,
Okay.
right,
Okay,
correct.
great. Okay, thank you.
And those are simulated divided light windows?
Yes.
I'm more to specific, they're not removable mutton or mullion.
As far as I know, that's not the intent.
Okay.
Question for the staff. And this may be hard to answer, but with the modifications he did to the dormers, is that kind of in line with what you had in mind?
I think anything to reduce the scale of those dormers is a positive step.
With the addition, quite a bit of addition to impervious materials there. How much are you adding?
My notes on it. I don't have that figure with me tonight.
Chairman King, in your packet, there is a breakdown of the impervious surface. It looks like, from a percentage standpoint, there's a 5.7% increase to the impervious surface.
I see that. And because of anything that'll be done with that drainage now, the existing drainage, are you going to change the pattern at all, or?
It'll be changed, but we'll get an engineer to help us with doing that, make sure
Okay.
we don't impact the neighbors.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
We have the calculation for the impervious. What's the square footage, the total building FAR? Do we have that?
This project is right at the maximum allowable bulk, and I apologize that that was not included in your packet of information.
But no variance.
No variances are requested.
Okay. Would anyone from the public like to testify at this point? Seeing none. Any final thoughts from staff?
Only again that I wanted to mention that there was a letter from a neighbor in your packets this evening. No objections to the architectural design, but with concerns for construction, parking, and the overall activity at the property. I'll just point out that as a recommended condition in your staff report, we do ask that a staging plan be permitted or provided at the time of permit.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Fisher, any final thoughts?
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, to the board, any final questions? Otherwise, we go right into discussion. Bob, you want to lead off? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that the demolition criteria is met to be able to do the partial demolition and add the piece on the back. I think what mitigates the architectural design, at least for me, is the fact that from the street, you barely see it. You know, I think it would be better if we had the windows replaced so it's consistent all the way around the building. But with a commitment that that's gonna happen when it does happen, because every window's gotta be replaced, then, yeah, I'm okay with it.
I think the addition's consistent with the existing structure, the materials are consistent, and I can support this.
Yeah, I agree. It's, I wish the height was not so different in the back, but the view corridor, you're just not going to see it, and I think it makes the house much more livable for the residents. There's some nice improvements here, including the basement, et cetera. I think it's going to be a nice addition, so I'm supportive of it.
The home is the big boy on the block. However, it meets the bulk criteria. It is a large site. The massing is predominantly to the rear. Overall, I think it is gonna read as the big boy on the block, though. It does concern me in that regard, but again, it's mitigated because the massing is to the rear and the scale of the site and setback.
In my judgment, the party most impacted by this design would be the neighbor to the south, and given we have not heard any issues from them, I think the plan's well thought out. My colleagues up here on the board have all raised good points, and I can't disagree. This is a nice plan and support moving forward.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the petition with the items identified in the staff report and the discussion we've had tonight.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Were you able to find a builder for this?
Next item is the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items.
The public's leaving.
Okay. Any other items from staff?
Only to let you guys know that we are continuing to work on a date for a tour for the board to review past projects and talk about your roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
So the tour will be rescheduled?
Right, we have not pinned down a date. The previously polled date did not work for everybody, so we want to find a date where the whole team can find one.
And what is our meeting date next month with Labor Day?
I believe the date is September 4th. I think it's a regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Great. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that
So
we
moved.
adjourn.
Second, anyone?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.